Welcome to the podcast. I probably should have hit record 30 minutes ago, but I didn't. I'm hanging out with my friend Lochlin. Lochlin, how you doing, sir?
I'm good, Mark. How did your last week of yoga go?
It was awesome. Yeah. So I want to just kind of, let me give some context to what the beginning of this conversation is going to be about. So I'm creating a new YouTube channel where I'm going to do some Explore84 kind of journeys and challenges to show people, how I use the app and how I kind of use Explore84 as a concept to kind of, implement positive daily habits, weekly habits into my life. So this one was my first one I've ever done. So it was a 28 day. I'm going to do yoga for 28 days. I've never really done yoga. I've been to a couple of classes, but like I was telling you, I always felt like that. If you watch like a school like play and there's always that one kid on the side of the stage doing like somersaults or whatever and just like completely oblivious to what's happening. That's how
Yeah,
I felt like
wearing a
when I
Habs
was in.
jersey.
Yeah, and picking his nose and like waving at his mom in the back and like, yeah, that's what I felt like when I do yoga,
It's a
right?
great
And
analogy.
so I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna do this, and I run, I bike. My friends, convinced me I got to lift weights. So I'm doing all these things, and I'm like, if I don't start, stretching and become flexible, one day my body's just gonna snap in half, and it's not gonna like rebound from that, right? So that was my thing. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do 28 days of yoga in a row. And you were nice enough to say, yeah, I'll help you with that. So, and meanwhile, you're living this busy life, like, moving across the country, getting a new gig. You're like, yeah, I'll totally do this. So every week for 28 days, you would send me a new video of a 30-minute yoga kind of sequence, right? Um,
Mhm.
so it went awesome. I was talking to Kristen that works with me. She was like, "Yeah, on like the first day, I needed to like literally like lift my leg and put it into place. Like I couldn't." And she's like, "Yeah, by the time you were done, it was like you were actually moving like a normal human being." So it went really well. So thank you for doing this. And so I wanted to kind of give context to where your yoga kind of journey, how you got into a spot where you feel really comfortable, teaching and helping people. So, how
Mhm.
long have you been doing yoga for?
So I broke my tailbone playing hockey when I was 40. And
Yeah.
then about it took about a year of me trying to fix it
Hmm.
before I finally succumbed to the everyone that I saw said you should try yoga. Um
Hmm.
and what I did at the beginning was so when I was about 41, I
Hmm.
started doing the tapes that my wife had in the basement. And you and I have talked about, you've had Ian Finn on your podcast, Explore84 podcast. He's out of Vancouver. He also, I think, lives quite a bit of the year in Bali. But
Yeah.
I had an Ian Finn DVD in my basement, and I
Wow.
would do that a couple of times a week. And it started to actually work. It was the one thing that worked. I chiropractor, not that it wasn't helping, but chiro, acupuncture, physiotherapy, all this stuff for my broken tailbone just wasn't. I was felt like it wasn't helping as much as I wanted it to, right?
Right.
And I was in a lot of pain for quite a few years. It took me, I say, a couple of years to get the courage up from the basement tapes to going to a studio, and then I'd say 3 4 years into that, I got right into it. 3 4 years into that, I started thinking at the back of my mind, maybe one day I'd like to actually get into teaching.
Hmm.
And this year has been a transformational year for me. 2024, the beginning of it, I lost a gig in Edmonton, which happens in our business in radio,
Hmm. Yeah.
especially in the last couple of years. I mean, I think half the damn country has been unemployed in our business just based on where it's at, and that's
Hmm.
a whole nother conversation for another day. But it allowed me to actually explore the idea of getting into yoga and taking my YTT, so your yoga teacher training program. And there's different levels, but I took the introductory side of it, got the 200 hours. through Kootenai Yoga School in Joshua Tree, California.
Wicked.
And then I got another 50 hours by taking part in a camp in the middle of the woods just outside of Christina Lake with Kootenai Yoga School as well in July, June, July, it doesn't matter, in the summer. So I spent my summer getting into yoga, got a job when I got back from my first YTT working at Lahara Yoga Studio in Edmonton. And then a job came up, and that's sort of September-ish. So I've been in
Yeah.
Regina, and I'm a co-host on the Green Zone, which is an AM sports entertainment show that broadcasts to the entire province of Saskatchewan on the AM dial. So there's an app, and it's on Spotify and Apple and all that. You can listen as well. But I'm gonna get back into teaching again when I get settled in Regina. We've only been here a couple of months, and your opportunity when you offered it up allowed me to sort of get back into that yoga teaching mindset again.
Mm-hmm.
And I did like 4 segments for your 28-day challenge. So that was fun. I really enjoyed it. So that's kind of my brief, in a nutshell, 2-3 minute explanation of my yoga journey.
So, and I, what I really enjoyed, and I think why like your kind of journey and how you approach yoga resonates with me is we're probably roughly the same size. Like you're a taller guy,
Yeah.
you know, 200 plus. So you're not like I'm like, whatever, I'm probably 200 pounds, on a good day. Um, for me, I'm not your typical kind of yoga looking kind of guy. Like,
No.
I'm kind of a bull in a china shop. You know what I mean? And so I can like how and I'll say like you're extremely flexible. So I'm not comparing us in terms of you're way further down the yoga journey than I am for sure. But I can relate to, like why you started yoga,
Yeah.
because of injury, and I just felt like you were the perfect person to kind of teach me and get me into yoga. I thought there was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
like similarities between, why you got into it and why I'm getting into it. So I'm curious for you, why did we, I don't know if it was your idea or my idea, but why did we decide that every week we were going to kind of change things up a little bit? What was the benefit there from your perspective?
The first week, I wanted to give you more of a simpler practice
Hmm.
with more of the traditional poses to get you comfortable with that, right? To sort of give you like a structure. And then from that, what I did was I kind of, on purpose, we kept the same idea of the flow, and then we just kind of added to it, right? Like the like week 1 was pretty simple yoga, right?
Right.
Downward dog, upward dog, warrior 1, warrior 2, and then some basic floor routine, and then I added a core thing to each one as well. And
Yeah.
then I just tried to, and I think I did okay with it. I tried to make each week progressively harder. Not over the top hard, but
Yeah.
adding a couple more elements to that basic structure. And um and yeah, by the end, by the 4th week, that's I think it's a really strong practice.
Oh man, like week
So
4 was, yeah, because what were we doing? Pigeon, right? At the end. It was hard. Like, but like for exactly the reason I need yoga, that's what, it was getting into all the areas that, I don't think ever stretched in my life. So it was just a really cool. So for me, it
did you
was,
feel the progression though? Did you
yeah,
feel like
exactly.
you did? Okay, good. Then I
Yeah.
then I accomplished what I wanted to do, because as soon as you asked me to do it, I thought, okay, here's a guy in a similar situation, grew up doing like sort of hockey, baseball, running, like all those kinds of sports,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and probably doing zero stretching. So I from that I built this practice that I thought would get you from like a point A, point B, point C,
Yeah.
point D kind of thing. Right.
And what
Anyway,
was
sorry to
cool
interrupt.
about it, what was cool about it is, like you say, it evolves a little bit over the 4 weeks, but it's similar enough where, you have like the upward dog, downward dog, the folding, all these things where you can kind of the muscle memory of learning all of those and how they flow
Mm-hmm.
together. That was really nice because, like I say, when I'm in a classroom setting, it's like, okay, I don't know how those piece together. So because, and then you did something, it's called hatha yoga, is that right?
Yeah. So there's there's a lot of different types of yogas. So
Hmm.
right? And when you go to a yoga class, you might see um Pilates offered up and
Hmm.
but the sort of the North American versions of yoga that you're going to see in a studio, whether it's hot or not, you're going to see probably vinyasa, which is also a flow, but vinyasa yoga. Okay, you're going to see yin, which
Hmm.
is yoga where and vinyasa is more continuous movement. So you
Okay.
start you might start at the top of your mat and you'll do, your A sequence, but you're constantly moving. I did a vinyasa flow this morning.
Okay.
And there was very little time between poses. You get into warrior one, you get into warrior two, you get into triangle, you get like you're constantly moving.
Hmm.
And then yin is yin. You'll see yin practices, and you might even see like a combination. Like some of them get creative and call them yin yang, where they might actually do a flow at the beginning for the first 30 minutes, and then they'll do a yin practice at the set. And the yin practice is like, remember pigeon at the
Hmm.
fourth week, where you
Hmm.
you know you put your leg out in front and you kind of get down. You might sit there for like 5 minutes, and then you get into like a another twist or something on the floor with a leg back or whatever. That's yin, right?
Okay.
And a lot of bolsters are used, like devices that you lie on to help stretch you as well. And then hatha, if you go back and do any sort of research on yoga, hatha practices are quite a bit older, and it's kind of the origins of yoga. And
Hmm.
hatha is 30 to 60 seconds, 3 to 6 breaths per posture. So what
Okay.
I like about hatha is because you and I are bigger guys and it takes us time to get into those poses, right?
Yeah.
It's, we're not 5'3", 105 pounds. It's taking us a little bit longer to get there. And then
Hmm.
you sit in the pose, get comfortable with it. Then you get into the
Hmm.
next pose. And it's surprisingly athletic too. Like you need strength to hang on to some of these poses, right? Especially when you
Yeah.
start getting into twists and things like that. So the hatha practice, and it's harder to find more traditional hatha, um, is generally you're taking 3 to 5 breaths per pose, right?
Okay.
And that's what I was giving you. And it's
Yeah.
also from a beginner perspective, I think it's beneficial because you have time to think about what you're doing,
Yeah.
right? And I also, when you're queuing, it gives you time to actually queue as well, right?
Yeah.
So it's not something you need to. If you go to a vinyasa class, you might be okay because you just did a month straight of yoga because you now know where some of the more obvious poses are going to go. Like if I'm in downward dog, I might feet to hands, forward fold, halfway lift, forward fold, back up to standing, and then sun
Hmm.
salutation, forward fold, back into chaturanga, up dog, back into you have an idea of where these poses go now. You might be
Yeah.
better in a vinyasa class now that you've done this. And I think it's just a better way to introduce people to yoga, the hatha practice, because it gives you time to think about where you are and where you might be going. Does that make sense?
100%. Oh yeah, yeah. No, and that was perfect because exactly. Like you're able to hold the poses. You're able to kind of process like, okay, I know what's coming up. It gives you that few seconds to kind of get into that. Um,
Mhm.
and even just, learning the lefts and the rights, like it was just, like it takes so long to kind of be like, okay, I know now, okay, we're going to start on this side, then we're going to go to that side. What I noticed too, and I don't know if you noticed this, but each week your teaching got like tighter every week, and it just seems like
Yeah.
teaching is something that is like, I don't know, does that come natural to you? You seem like you're like, I feel like some people when it comes to stuff like yoga, they're good at guiding yoga, but I think teaching yoga is different, and you seem like you're someone who's really good at teaching. Is that something that comes natural to you?
Well, thank you. And anybody in my life, like if anybody was given me as an instructor, say on the board in radio,
Yeah.
they would be panicking because everyone was like, yeah, Locke can't teach. Like there's just he's the last guy you want showing how to use the board. Like and I've been that guy forever. Don't you don't want to learn from Locke, right? But yoga, when I got into yoga, it was I was like I said in my 40s,
Yeah.
and it was a really good time for me as a person. And the longer I did it, the more I felt like this was something that I could use to give back.
Hmm.
I've always sort of felt that for the last 5-10 years anyway, I felt
Hmm.
like this is something that I can give to people. I would never force anybody to do yoga. When
Hmm.
people talk to me about it, and talk to me about getting in shape or changing up the routine or whatever. I always tell people find something you like to do
Hmm.
and do that, because if you hate running and your buddy
Hmm.
runs, you're not going to keep it up, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So you have to really like something, a form of athletics
Hmm.
to stick with it. But if if somebody comes to a yoga class, then they clearly want to be there. I
Hmm.
feel like it's something that I and maybe that's why I'm better at it at teaching this than other things in my life, because I feel like this is something that I can do to give back, because I've been a
Hmm.
very selfish human being most of my life, if we're being honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one thing I was thinking about as you were saying that is it reminds me of, like Craig McTavish will say, we'll use a hockey analogy where, Craig McTavish was a better coach than Wayne Gretzky, right? So there's something about your ability to relate to people like me, I think, that makes
Mhm.
you good at teaching, good at coaching. You know what I mean? Like you can kind of empathize. Whereas like there are some people that are just so, they were born in a yoga pose, I think, and they're really good
Yeah.
at yoga, but it's harder for them to explain the process because they just almost come at it intuitively. Whereas you can kind of empathize, I feel like, and that makes you a better teacher.
Well, and I think that yeah, I think you're right. Coming into it so late in life, and trust me, I wish I had. I mean, there's a stigma with yoga and men, right?
Hmm.
I mean, I'm going to go to the football game tonight in Regina, and I'm going to drink some beer.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still a dude, right?
Yeah.
On Sunday, I'm going to watch the Battle of Alberta, and I'm
Yeah.
going to drink beer again,
I'm
right?
gonna be there. I'm gonna
Are
be at
you?
the game. Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
out of here. Is it in
Yeah.
Calgary? It is in
Yeah.
Calgary, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Good for you. So I don't think, you can't get into yoga because you like beer and hockey, right?
Yeah.
But there are guys out there, like my new co-host, Jamie, he is never doing yoga.
Hmm.
I think he would rather you cut his foot off than go to a
Yeah.
yoga studio. So there's still that stigma. But when I got into it, And I did it, and I was hiding from all my friends and family and doing it in the basement. And I started to get a little bit better at it, started to build up some confidence. When I went to the studio, I remember feeling like that guy you described at the beginning, standing
Yeah.
on stage picking his nose. I'm like, I was lost. Even though I
Yeah.
had been doing yoga for 2, 3 years in my basement, I was lost because the teachers and instructors just assumed that the people in front of them had the knowledge needed to follow, right?
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
and so when I approach teaching, I approach it from a bit of a different perspective in that, okay, there might be somebody in there that's 40 that's dealing with a shoulder injury or something, and this is, just doesn't want to be in pain anymore, and is
Hmm.
and is going to, attempt to do yoga today.
Yeah.
Um, and so you're kind of speaking to that sort of baseline person, because I was that guy. And to be
Hmm.
honest, there's still a lot of things that a 6'4", 220-pound guy, even though I've been doing yoga for a long time, I'm not getting into a lot of those poses that 5'3", 105-pound yogi, 26
Yeah.
year old yogi is able to get into without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Right.
No, totally. Yeah.
So I do have that empathy for that sort of position, and getting into it a little bit later in life. And that's sort of how I approached this with you. Although I was impressed. I was watching back. I think you're a lot better at this than you're giving yourself credit for.
Well, I mean, I felt good by the end, but it was yeah, I'm like I said, I'm feeling parts of my body that I didn't know existed 28 days ago. So it's pretty cool. What my end goal with this was that I wanted to have the confidence to go into a class. And so I think I was telling you I did so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, I'm going to do a class all 3 days. And I did
Good for
book,
you.
they have like a beginner thing where you get like 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So I booked that. So I'm just gonna go right into it. So and that was kind of my, like I said, that was my goal. And that was so I'm like very grateful that you helped me through this. Because I think it's just gonna be something that I want to continue for the rest of my life. Because really it's so helpful with I think just as a foundation, I think yoga is just so helpful for everything that you do athletically.
I think there's a lot of benefits to, especially when you get older. I think there's a lot of benefits to for yoga for anything, whether you're into curling or
Yeah.
running or hiking or whatever. I know a lot of runners now, because runners I think can deal with repetitive type injury, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're running a lot. A lot of runners, you're seeing them gravitating to yoga and doing it a couple of times a week and adding that into, sort of a regular routine. Yeah, I I'm stronger now than I probably was in my 20s and 30s,
Yeah.
and I'm 54. I can do things, and I feel I'm at that age now where if like I'll tweak something and it takes 2 weeks, 3 weeks to go away, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just age. You're just dealing with that stuff. But just my overall strength and core is
Yeah.
better than I think it ever was. Like even doing something like standing on one foot.
Oh
I can
yeah.
I can I've noticed a huge change in just in that simple move, right?
Yeah.
You know, like I can now bend down and tie my shoes without
Yeah.
cutting off air, like
Without like grunting. It's so funny watching like my first few videos, like because I forget sometimes the GoPros have sound. And I'm just like grunting, like I'm like lumbering through everything. And then yeah, it just
well, as you get better, Mark, you'll start to the breath work will it took me years to get the breath work down.
yeah.
If you continue on with yoga, just consciously think about the breath and trying to match your breath with your movements, and your breath will
Yeah.
get better as well. Like I can
Yeah.
always tell when somebody new in yoga, like, cause they're like, and you can hear them in the corner, right? Like,
Yeah.
and good for them. I'm not
100%.
bothered by it. I'm
Yeah.
not bothered by anybody that's a little bit of a louder breather in class, because I actually, when I teach too, I tell people, don't be shy of the breath. I want to hear your breathing. And it's hard when you're just a normal like hockey guy, basketball guy, volleyball, whatever it is that you did your whole life, baseball. I don't
Mhm.
think we were taught to think about the breath, right? And
No,
and I
not at all. As long
no,
as you were
and
breathing, it was good. When you
yeah.
stop breathing, bad. That's what you're
Well, and
taught.
I've even watched like now my daughter's boyfriends and things like that, and like they'll have like we're gonna have a push up contest right at Christmas time, and they're like sitting doing push ups. Well, you know, Jacob doesn't breathe.
Yeah.
Like he stops breathing and does like 25 push ups, right? But and his head's beat red, right?
Yeah.
I now when I do exercise, I actually consciously think, and I'm still not great at it. I consciously think about breathing through it because of yoga,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. There's and that's what I mean. Like foundationally, you learn so much, like from like the standing poses, like you say. I didn't realize how much of a core and how much of a lower back um exercise or how much it impacts those two areas. Like I just didn't think of it. And then,
Yoga is
over the
amazing
course.
for core.
Yeah, no, it's
Amazing,
been.
yeah.
So you mentioned stigma, and so guys, and this is one thing, and we've actually talked about it when you were on the podcast last time. But when you did how many days in a row at one point, and you were documenting it on Instagram.
600 plus.
Yeah,
I was only going to go a year, but then I hit the year mark. I hit 365, and I went, I'm going to keep going. Um,
cool.
and it ended up being kind of stupid because I wasn't letting my body recover.
Right.
And yeah, I remember it was like October the following year. So I'm closing in on 2 years, and we were out for dinner or something, and I couldn't get out. Like I was like, "Ugh." I was in pain getting out of the chair at dinner. And my wife's
Yeah.
like, "You're being an idiot. You're obsessive about these things, and now you're in pain going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like there's something wrong with you." Like so, I quit on her sort of chiding. And
Yeah.
I took like 2 weeks off and then slowly got back into it. And now I try and do yoga in the mornings. I have a quick routine if I have time.
Hmm.
And then I try to get to a studio. My life has just been chaos last couple of months, but I'm trying to at least get to a studio at least once or twice a week. So
Nice.
yeah,
Well,
but I'm
like
also I walk quite a bit with it. Walking is like I go for a couple clicks every morning and every night with the dog. And
yeah.
I think that's actually pretty decent exercise.
It's
I
good,
mean,
man. I went for like a 6K walk with my dog this morning. We had a dog for years and we lost him a few years ago. And I noticed as soon as I stopped walking my dog, like when he passed away, I think I gained like 5 pounds in like the first 2 weeks because it was
two
just
weeks,
like
yeah.
there was always that steady, at least 5K of walking every day because it'd be a couple kilometers in the
Yeah.
morning, couple at night, and all of a sudden that was gone. But with the stigma, you mentioned that, some guys still think yoga's, hippy dippy and like,
Mm,
whatever word you want to use. I think you've done a really good job with your circle of like whatever you want to call it, circle of friends, circle of influence, of really getting rid of that stigma. And I know for me, watching you through that journey, that was part of what really got me curious about it. So I think you're doing a really good job of showing because you're kind of that when people see you because you've been a radio personality for so long, you're kind of almost like the cliche kind of guy that wouldn't do yoga. You know what I mean? With
yeah.
how people see you. So when they see you doing it kind of gives guys who are kind of, I'd say maybe perceive themselves or as macho guys going, hey, you know what? I can do yoga, which I think is
Y-
cool.
there is just this sort of idea of what it is, and you know what, it is that, but it doesn't have to be that, right? Like there
Totally.
you will meet people in the yoga community, and they're awesome people that are into the real spiritual side of it, because yoga is is also very much that. It
Hmm.
is, right? And you can get into the history of yoga and the philosophy of yoga and the meditation side of it. And all of that is fantastic. And if you get into that and that's your jam, all the more power to you. I maintain that I'm not a big fan of religion, and not that yoga is a religion, but it's on the
Hmm.
same sort of wavelength. I'm a big proponent of again, not the structure of religion, but I
Hmm.
feel like people need something to believe in. I'm a
Hmm.
proponent of faith. So whatever you need to do to cope with the world that we live in, go for it, right?
Yeah.
But yoga can also be something what I've done with it, which is I think it's just a really good workout.
Hmm.
And yeah, like I'm dipping my toes into the more hippy dippy side of it with the Wolfpack podcast and with some of the people that I've met that are more sort of entrenched in that side of the world.
Yeah.
And you and I've talked about the three people that I do the podcast with, EJ, Andrew, and Sarah, and they're much further down the path of that side of it than I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I appreciate it still outside looking in for what it's done for them. But I think a lot of guys like a Mark who, trained for an Ironman last couple of years and really cool, did that, and now is looking for something a little bit more. And you know what? And is just gonna go to a studio a couple of times a week, maybe.
Yeah.
I and you don't have to get into the, trying to levitate side of yoga, right?
Right. Yeah.
It can be more than that. But my classes, like when I was teaching, and I desperately want to get back into it. I'm hoping I can find someplace in Regina where I can teach. But my classes, I play rock music, and right there's no
Yeah.
chanting, and you know what I mean. It's
Yeah.
just we're gonna have some fun here. We're gonna work out, and we're you know gonna learn a little bit about yoga today. I don't take it too
Absolutely.
seriously. Yeah,
So let's talk about your podcast for a little bit because it is called the Wolf Pack. So you guys do it once
on the full moons.
you do it on the full moons. Yeah. So you've done three now. And
Yep.
these are people that you met when you were at Joshua Tree.
So Sarah, she was my instructor at the YTT program in Joshua Tree,
Okay.
and she is not from this planet. She is. We talk about it all the time. She's got alien DNA. We're sure of it.
So
And
so she was the one that was late on the last
on the last,
podcast, right? Yeah.
well, I don't know if you watched the other. I think she was late on the first two
Was
as well.
she? Yeah, I was saying to you, yeah, like each one of them just seems like an absolute character that you like you.
Oh,
It was like you cast them. You know what I mean?
they're so. And Andrew went to YTT with me in Joshua Tree. He actually picked me up at the airport. We had like everyone that was taking part. There was like 13, 14 of us that did this class in Joshua Tree. Went down to the compound, and he lives in San Diego, or did
Yeah.
at the time. And he offered up on the chat group. I'll be driving through, So when I landed in Palm Springs, I gave him like $40 for gas or whatever, and he picked me up at the airport. So we had like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive in, got to know each other, and we're both musicians. So we connected. Like I brought all my harmonicas, and he had a ukulele. So we played music every night around the
Sweet.
bonfire, and we were actually roommates. Um, there was like three dudes. So it was me, Andrew, and Devin were the only
Yeah.
guys that were at this teacher training. So him and I became really close. And he's like, I don't know how to explain Andrew. He's kind of a surfer dude, but not over he's not Spicoli,
Yeah.
right? If I can
Yeah.
give you a bit of a 80s reference.
Oh
Anyway,
yeah.
he's not but he's very much in that kind of dude world, right?
Yeah.
And not somebody that I would typically hang out with, but we really connected. And I think I'll be friends with Andrew for the rest of my life. A lot younger
Yeah.
than me, but I think it's that musician thing too. We connected on. And then EJ wasn't at the YTT. She's a yoga teacher, and she
Okay.
does these retreats. She does them all over the world. She was just in Africa, and
Wow.
she sells opportunities for people to go, and then they'll go overseas, and she'll do like a week long or a 2 week program. And she lives in Vail, Colorado, I think.
Hmm.
And so she I think she has a regular practice there where she teaches, but then she does these camps and stuff and works for the Kootenai Yoga School. We met her when all four of us were working, because Andrew and I got hired by Kootenai Yoga School to work their Christina Lake program, which is their off-grid program. And that
Okay.
literally, we were in frickin' tents for 2 weeks, and living on the side of a river and just outside of Christina Lake. It was really cool. And
Sweet.
she was one of the two instructors with Sarah, and the four of us became really close. And we were there for like 2+ weeks, setting up, tearing down, teaching. Like I did everything from like putting up tents to cutting potatoes to teaching classes. And there was like 25, I think, 30 participants in
Yeah.
that program. Yeah. And so when we were down there, we got talking about doing a podcast. And it's weird. I remember telling them, I said, you guys know nothing about broadcasting. And but I will tell you this. I said, we all have very different personalities that I think will work
Hmm.
in a podcast sort of format. And I think it does.
It does. It was hilarious. Like I was listening to it as I was running, and I'm just like I said, I felt like I knew each of them by the time I was done, and because the one girl's late for it's like she's 10 minutes late. You started without me. I'm like, oh, I was just like, I know you. And then is it Andrew? The
Andrew, yeah.
guy? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like what was he? He was like in a Starbucks for half of it, right? And then he goes outside, you can hear like a train going by. I'm just like, yeah, I know those guys too. Like it's just like they're all characters, man. It was, and then you where your job, and this is probably your broadcasting background and just the fact that you've been on air for so long, but I was saying to you before, you're the thread that just kind of like all these people have this knowledge to drop, right? And then you kind of
Mm-hmm.
thread it all into a storyline, which I thought was really fun.
Yeah, yeah. And everyone contributes in their own sort of unique way. And all three of them are very comfortable sharing things about themselves that give the viewer or the listener a real clear idea of their personalities almost
Hmm.
immediately,
Yeah,
which is unique in that I think how authentic all four of us are,
yeah.
that comes through so quickly, right? Because that's that's not it's not easy to do.
No, no, it's not.
Like, and they're not traditional broadcasters, but they're just
Yeah.
really good at just being themselves. And yeah, I've talked about this with them before, and many people. I think the world that we live in right now, and we're being bombarded with so much like YouTube, TV, you're constantly on your phones, and there's so much fake stuff out there. I think people are looking for and gravitating towards real voices and authentic voices, and they might not be able to put a finger on it or put a thumb on it as to what it is that they like about something. But I think people need that sort of authentic voice in their lives, and
Yeah.
the podcasts and the content creators, in my opinion, that will continue to rise above the rest and gain traction in the world that we live in right now are the ones that are just authentically themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No, I agree.
I've always had an ability to do that. Like
Hmm.
when you meet me in person, you're not going to get anybody unlike what you've heard on the radio or on a podcast. I kind of unabashedly am myself. But
Yeah.
you want to really throw a wrench into it? Give me a script and tell me I have to deliver lines.
Yeah. Well, and you know what's funny is because I've met a lot of media, like people from media through what I do in my day-to-day job. And you're exactly right. Like there's a lot of them who you see on TV and who you see in person, they're completely different, right? They're playing a character. You are when you press record, you're the same Lochlin as when you're like, having a beer
Yeah.
afterwards kind of thing. You're 100% the same human being.
And again, I think those types of voices are going to be more and more important as you know as the
Yeah.
world, in my opinion. And
I know
I could.
I totally agree. So you were talking on the podcast. So you do it so every full moon. How did you guys come up with that?
We I we started calling our we were hanging out every night at the off grid program with the Kootenai Yoga School. We kind
Yeah.
of had our little compound where the four of us all stayed. We all had our
Yeah.
own little. I had a little trailer, and they had their tents and everything like that. And at night we would just hang out. We'd have a fire and shoot the shit and just talk
Yeah.
about life. And I think one night there was a full moon or something, and we maybe had a couple drinks in us or something, and we started
Yeah.
howling at the moon, and so we just talked about the fact that we should do this podcast, do it on full moons, and call it the Wolfpack Podcast. So
It's brilliant. So I listened
yeah,
to it on I'm looking at it now. I'm listening to it on Spotify. And it's called The Wolf Pack, right?
it's on YouTube, and I never
Okay.
bothered putting it up on Apple.
Okay.
Just it's one more hoop that I didn't want to jump through.
Yeah,
So
but no, it's brilliant. I want people to check it out for sure. And like I said, all four of you guys are characters. It works out. So last week you guys talked about shadow work. I don't have it. I'm at my home office right now, but at my office, I have a book about shadow work that I've read,
what?
and it's a bunch of essays and stuff like that. It's really, really good. So I'll send
It's a
you a
lot of
picture of it.
Yeah, do me a favor and send that to me, because a lot
Yeah.
of shadow work, it sounds like a little cultish, but it actually is just sort of digging into the side of, and I learned this on the podcast from Andrew, EJ, and Sarah, who know more
Hmm.
about this than I do. I had
Hmm.
no idea. Like I was like, are we doing shadow puppets? I can do a dog. But it's about the side of ourselves. Speaking of authenticity, it's about the side of ourselves that we hide from not only ourselves but other people.
Hmm.
And if you want to dig that person out, that personality that you hide from yourself and from others, there's certain things you can do.
Hmm.
And the journaling is a big part of it, right? I guess writing. So that's something. It's interesting that you've explored that. The one that we're doing on no, November 15th. October 17th was the last full moon. November
Hmm.
15th is the next full moon. We're doing something called the human design. And I don't even know how to begin to even explain that to you.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
but
excited for that.
they know a little bit more about it. And again, this
Yeah.
is the more hippie-ish, and not that human design has anything to do with yoga, but the yoga community is getting a little bit more involved in this. And I have no idea where the origins of this stuff comes from. Um, so I'm going in this with very fresh eyes. And what they told me was we need your date of birth, the day, the month, the year, and what time you were born, and then
And
they
where?
and where, yes, and then they
Hmm.
like crap out all of this information about you, and it's terrifying how accurate it is.
Awesome. I'm excited
Yeah,
for that. I was looking at it, and but it wanted me to pay a whole bunch of money before it would. And I also asked my mom what time I was born, and she's like, I don't know. I'm like, of course you
you were
don't.
like
I'm
the
the
fifth
fifth
one.
kid. Yeah, yeah. It's just like who can I forget you exist half the time, Mark. How the hell would I know when you were born?
Didn't she,
Um,
does she call you
so
by the wrong name quite
yeah,
often too?
she calls me Matt. I have to correct her. But so I'm gonna phone the hospital and see if there's like a way of like if there's got to be a
Is it not
record
on your
somewhere.
birth? Is there not on your birth certificate?
Oh, look at that. Maybe. I don't think so though. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't looked.
I think it is, Mark. Go look at your birth
Okay.
certificate. Yeah,
Okay, I
yeah.
will. But no, I'm super interested because I was
There's
telling
some
you,
free ones. There's
is there okay?
yeah, if you go online, you can do a free one. Um, yeah, and then if you get somebody who has paid for it, they can punch in the information for you. So
Okay.
if
Sweet.
somebody reaches out to you after hearing this podcast,
Yeah.
maybe you can send them, the information, and they can give you the report back.
Nice. Yeah, no, I'm curious. I want to lean into that, so I'll have to listen to that podcast. And then the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, because as all of this is going on and you're helping me with my yoga journey, meanwhile, you're moving cities.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting, doing all the background work to start a new job and all that stuff. So super busy life as you're helping me with this. So again, I'm very appreciative that you were taking the time to do it. So you moved from Edmonton to Regina, and what's
Mm-hmm.
the new
Yeah.
gig?
So I'm working on it's a sports entertainment show with Jamie Nye, who has been here for like 15 plus years doing this show called The Green Zone, and it's on 980 and 650. So if you're on the AM dial and you're traveling anywhere in Saskatchewan, north, it's better to go for 650, and then the Regina kind of region is 980. But there's an app, and it's on Spotify as well and Apple. We have a podcast that goes out every day.
Okay.
And the show started out as, I think, more of a Rough Riders show, a football show,
Yeah.
and it sort of morphed into a more of what you would hear on a sports podcast. I mean, we talk about everything now.
Right.
And it's not just sports either. We're dipping our toes into other topics as well. And I think the motivation to bring me in was also to sort of reach out past the sports world a bit as well, because I'm not a sports expert by any stretch. I watch sports,
Hmm.
but I'm coming in at it from the sports fan perspective. And yeah, so I got here in September, and this past week we debuted the show. So for about 6 weeks behind the scenes, we were doing practice shows and putting together our prep systems and getting to know each other. And the day I met Jamie, it was back in August,
Hmm.
because it's been, it was for a couple of months we were sort of talking about the idea of me coming. They flew me out to Saskatoon, and we hung out for went for dinner and then hung out. I knew right away that the two of us would be able to do a show together.
Awesome.
And yeah, we have a lot of similarities, but there's a difference, enough of a difference that we got some things we can, both of us got pretty decent humility, and we can poke fun at each other. Yeah. I'm really proud of the show already, and we've only been a week in.
Nice, man.
Live anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, because we were chatting, like, and I have to compliment you. You're really good at keeping secrets, because I didn't know what the hell you were doing. You're like, no, we can't really. We're not talking about it publicly. So I only knew as soon as you went live, because I think you posted something on Instagram saying that you were.
Tuesday this past week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so how pissed were some of your friends from Edmonton? Because you kind of did like a midnight move, and you were pretty low key about what was going on. Like you really couldn't share a lot of information.
Yeah. Well, there's probably some relationships I'll need to repair,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. The company that I'm working for, they wanted me to keep it quiet, and they didn't want it to get out there. So my wife and I are like, okay, well, we put the house up for sale. The house, packed up our crap, came to Regina. We found a place in Regina where it's just month to month, so we didn't have to sign a long lease. We move out at the end of the month here to our new place in Regina. So we're not even in our own sort of space yet, right?
Yeah.
And Mark, I had hundreds of people. What are you doing? Like, the only thing I posted was at the beginning of September, when we were driving to Regina with our stuff.
Hmm.
I took a picture of the Welcome to Saskatchewan sign, and I put that up. So that was the
Right.
only indication that we gave in. The only people that knew we were moving were like our daughters. That's it. We didn't tell anybody. And we showed up in Regina and kind of just buckled down, put our heads down. Deb, my wife, got a transfer, and I started going into work and practicing on the show. And yeah. And if anybody reached out to me after a couple of weeks, I thought it would be funny to tell everybody I was here raising llamas, and a surprising number of people weren't sure if I was kidding or not.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
they're like, he does yoga. What, like, nothing surprises me now.
And maybe that's what it was.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
had one guy reach out to me, a friend of mine in Ontario, worked in the record business for years. Steve Cody, he sent me a note. He goes, what are you doing? Like, where are you? Because I stopped going on social media, everything. And
Yeah.
I sent a note back. I said, I'm raising llamas. And he goes, his response back was something like, the funny thing about that, Lock, is that that might actually be true.
Yeah. Now you have to. That's
And then my
awesome.
second response was, have you seen the price of llama meat? And I think his response was, not something I'm tracking, Lock.
Yeah, exactly. So how are you liking Regina? Has it been a little bit of an adjustment?
It's interesting that it's a different province. Like
Hmm.
Alberta, and I don't have anything negative to say about Edmonton and Alberta. And our time there was awesome. We lived in St. Albert. We raised our daughters there. They both went to school there, French immersion, and it was a great community. Both our careers took off, my wife and mine in Edmonton. So I have nothing negative to say. But it was we moved from Winnipeg to Edmonton, and Winnipeg we had a ton of friends, everybody in the neighborhood. Like we had block parties. We had our neighbor Kevin and his wife would have us over on Fridays for drinks. And we
Hmm.
came to Edmonton, and it was not that. It
Hmm.
it was not that at all. And the whole time we were there, even when we moved around, we always sort of felt outside looking in. And we just, our wives, my wife and I, we've been together for so long and moved and had to do it on our own. We just adapt, right?
Hmm.
But the night we got here, we kind of we got in at, around dinner time. So we had our cars and everything packed. We get to our rental. We like each of us grab a suitcase, get the dog in the house and everything. And we're like, okay, well, Locke, go get some food. So I hop back in the car and I drive to a Safeway that's 5-10 minutes away, and I went in and I grab a basket and I grab some stuff for dinner. Like we're just gonna
Yeah.
put together a dinner. And the woman in front of me turned around and started talking to me in the Safeway, and that just doesn't happen in Alberta, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone
Yeah.
sort of keeps to themselves. Maybe it's just an Edmonton
Hmm.
thing, but everybody's kind of just sort of keeps to themselves, stays in their little bubble. And I went home and I'm like, this is a different province. And my
Yeah.
wife's why? I'm like, because the woman at the, in the lineup at the grocery store turned to me and started talking to me like she'd known me her whole life. And Saskatchewan, I mean, they talk about it, and then when you move here, you hear about it. But it's people are just they're friendly here. My wife
Yeah.
was at work the other day telling somebody she works with she has never like has no idea who this person is. They offered to help us move at the end of the month.
That's
She's
awesome.
like, we've got this couple coming over to help us move at the end of the month, and I'm like, what?
Are they bringing a casserole? I
I
love it,
hope
man.
so.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just different. Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
That's good,
So
man.
it is. We're enjoying it. I want to get my own place.
Yeah.
We'll feel way more settled when we get our place and our stuff and everything like
Yeah,
that. But
totally.
so,
Totally.
but yeah,
Well,
the
this is
job's going well,
good,
and yeah,
man.
yeah, it's good.
You gotta find a yoga studio now to start teaching, and then yeah, get a new place, get a studio that you can teach at, and it sounds like you'll be pretty settled in.
The nice thing about my job too is because it's a provincial show.
Hmm.
So the company that I work for, they have offices in Regina and in Saskatoon. So once a month or maybe even more, we'll be in Saskatoon. So it's kind of
Hmm.
cool. I'm going to be traveling a bit with the show. So that I've never done that before.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. So next week we'll be broadcasting out of the Saskatoon offices.
Nice.
And Saskatoon's a really cool little town as well.
It
Yeah.
is good. How's the in my other life I'm with Alberta Beer Festival. So how is the beer scene in Regina?
Well, I want to do a social media bit where I do my Lockers Saskatchewan observations, and one of them is like friendly people. The other one is the cost of liquor here is quite a bit higher than it is in. I shouldn't say quite a bit, but it's noticeably higher in Saskatchewan.
Really?
And I don't know. I've only been here a little while, and I don't know how, like Alberta's craft beer market is insane. Like it's exploded in the last 10 years. You know that from your day job. And there are hundreds of amazing smaller breweries in Alberta. I don't think they have the same kind of um craft beer side of things here in Saskatchewan, but I have found one that I absolutely love. Pile of Bones has
Yeah.
a little brewery, and we've actually Deb and I have already gone down there, and we've eaten there. The food was amazing. We before one of the Rider games, we went and hung out and had some pints, and they've got a white IPA, Mark, that I think is my favorite IPA I've ever had.
Nice. I'll have to come to I'll come invite myself to I'm not going to help you move, but I'll come invite myself to Regina and we'll do a brewery tour.
You know what? Do like yeah, I'd love to. Let me know
Yeah.
as soon as you want to make that happen. Come out here.
Absolutely. So, I should probably let you go enjoy a day off, but I want to thank you for helping me with this because I've wanted to do yoga for so long and just to be feeling that confidence, and that was what the whole 28-day journey was all about, was getting that confidence to start going to classes. Um, I'll put you on the spot, but once I get this YouTube channel up and going, I'd love to do something where maybe we can keep this like the videos going and stuff like that, where maybe it's once a
Yeah.
month or something, and we just kind of evolve the practice because I'd love to have help people do kind of what I was able to do, which is get into it because I think when I talk to people about yoga, foundationally, it's just so important for just life in general, right? To have that strength and that flexibility. So I really appreciate that you got me into it, and if we can get other people inspired to do it, I'd love to have that
Well,
happen.
and you know what? Again, for me, the teaching side of it has I want to find a way in my life to give back somehow.
Mhm.
And I think this is going to be my path to that. And I will find a place in Regina to teach. Again, I just need to get settled. But I'll also say this: I don't know if there's any benefit to the videos that I sent you to sharing those
Oh,
on your
totally.
YouTube channel. But you're more than welcome to share the videos that I made for you on your channel as sort of an introductory to yoga. And yeah, I'm 100% on board continuing. And you know what? As hectic as my life was, I was so appreciative of the opportunity to sort of keep my mind in that teaching mode,
Hmm.
right? Because I had to give up my job, my teaching job that I had in the summer in Edmonton when I came to Regina.
Hmm.
And as soon as I did, I was like, I was missing that side of my life. And so, um, yeah, when you came up with this idea and said I want this challenge and everything like that, I was excited about it. So it was my pleasure, and I was grateful to be able to get out of that sort of mindset of moving and new career and la 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 to focus on something different, right?
Yeah.
So
And
thank you.
what one thing that I realized through this, I remember someone telling me this years ago, but he said to me, like, don't be afraid to ask for help. And that was one thing that I learned from this process is you are really good at teaching yoga. You love yoga. And it's funny when you ask somebody who's good at something to help you, more often than not, you're going to get that help, right? So like that was a
Hmm.
lesson that I learned, and it kind of made me a little bit more brave to kind of maybe keep doing this, like looking for people in my world who are experts at something that I want to lean into and ask them for help and kind of, get into the whatever that is through that process. I think it was an important lesson for me.
Okay, that's yeah, yeah, and you know what? If somebody is at a point in their lives where they're looking for like I broke my tailbone, and I don't know
Hmm.
if anybody's ever done that before, but it was debilitating. I went from like my entire exercise existence on the planet was just doing things
Hmm.
like hockey, golf,
Hmm.
baseball, basketball, whatever it was. That's how I kept in shape. I didn't go to a gym. I don't lift weights. I've never owned a gym membership in my entire life,
Hmm.
right? So that's how. And so when I broke my tailbone and couldn't do any of that stuff, I like put on a bunch of weight, and so I was desperately looking for something, and it did help secure my core and help me get past the pain of dealing with that. If I sat for 5-10 minutes, I would just seize up,
Wow.
right? Because of that break. And it's just a stupid little bone. And and I broke the tip of it off, and it was like debilitating.
Oh,
I
wow.
quit. I quit
Yeah.
playing hockey. I quit doing everything, right? Because I was in constant pain. And so and a lot of people out there that, they've done something, they've injured themselves, whatever it might be,
Hmm.
and they're looking for, and you know what? Yoga helped me. And it might not help if everybody's situation, but it helped my situation. And there might be
Yeah.
people out there looking for a change in their lives or looking to get out of pain or whatever. And if you might help a couple of people, Mark, with this whole program, this Explore 84.
Well, yeah, no, I appreciate your help with this. And now you're exploring the hippie side with the podcast. So yeah, I hope people listen because it was a ton of fun. I laughed a lot and yeah, just the topics you guys were talking about, like really, really interesting topics. So thanks again, man. I appreciate it.
No, this has been awesome. And keep in touch, my friend.
100%. I want to, yeah, definitely keep in touch. And I am due for a Saskatchewan road trip, so I'll come bug you.
Yeah, for sure. Come. We'll
Okay.
go for beers. Hey, do me a favor too. Let me know
Yeah.
how the in studio stuff goes this week. I'm very curious to
Yes,
see
I
how
will.
comfortable you feel.
I asked her if I can set up because I've been doing time lapse videos of my yoga
Yeah,
practices. So I asked her if I can set up a camera so I can do a time lapse of myself, and she said yes. So yeah,
they'll
but
stick you
I'll
in a
definitely,
corner.
yeah, I'll let you know though, man. But yeah, it's I'm excited and nervous, but I'll keep you posted.
Awesome. Good luck, my
Awesome.
friend. Take
Thanks,
care.
Locke. Take care.